I have been keeping my online dating disaster a secret from my family for weeks now. I work as a home health aide taking care of elderly patients while studying for my nursing certification exam. Between working full-time and studying every spare moment, my social life is basically non-existent. My American friends kept bugging me to try dating apps. After weeks of them insisting everyone does it and it's totally normal, I reluctantly downloaded Bumble. I was honestly nervous about the whole thing. After a few days of swiping, I matched with this guy, Jake, who seemed perfect on paper. Good job as a business consultant, his own apartment, nice car, stable career, basically everything that would check my boxes and make my parents happy if things ever got serious. We chatted for about 2 weeks, and he seemed intelligent and put together. His messages were always thoughtful, and he asked questions about my nursing studies. I finally agreed to meet him for dinner, planning to be home early enough to stick to my study schedule. I arrived at the restaurant on time and waited and waited and waited. I was literally grabbing my purse to leave when Jake finally showed up looking nothing like his profile pictures. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't expecting perfection, but his clothes were wrinkled, his hair was unwashed, and he just looked sloppy. Still, I didn't want to be judgmental, so I stayed. The first red flag came when he casually mentioned being on parole. He just dropped it in the middle of talking about his weekend plans. Then he started explaining his consulting business, which turned out to be selling stolen credit card information online. He was talking about it as a legitimate venture. "You seem pretty square," he said. "You need to loosen up about this stuff. Everyone's got to make money somehow." I sat there in shocked silence while he detailed various schemes he was involved in. My mind was racing with thoughts of how to get out of there without causing a scene. When the check arrived, Jake patted his pockets and suddenly realized he forgot his wallet. The bill was $87, and he promised to pay me back later while completely avoiding eye contact. I reluctantly paid and excused myself to the restroom to process what was happening. I splashed water on my face and gave myself a pep talk in the mirror. I was going to go back out there, end this nightmare date, and get home to my textbook. Simple plan, right? When I returned and tried to leave, Jake completely ignored my hints and then outright statements about needing to go. He followed me all the way to my car, suggesting we continue the date at Wendy's drive-thru since he was still hungry. Somehow I ended up with him in my car at the Wendy's parking lot. That's when things went from bad to absolutely insane. A woman suddenly appeared outside my car, screaming Jake's name and pounding on my window. Before I could process what was happening, she reached through my window and started grabbing at Jake. "You slept with me this morning and now you're with her?" she screamed, still trying to get at him through my window. They were having this full-blown argument with me sitting between them. When I finally found my voice, I demanded they both get out of my car immediately. Jake had the audacity to tell me to just drive and leave his girlfriend in the parking lot. I refused and threatened to call the police if they didn't both exit my vehicle. They finally left, still arguing with each other, and I drove away as fast as legally possible. Just when I thought it was over, my phone started blowing up with calls from Jake. I made the mistake of answering one, only to hear him confess that he has no car, no apartment, and actually lives with his parents 2 hours away in another city. Everything had been a lie. I blocked his number immediately and canceled my credit card just to be safe, since he saw me use it at dinner. I was trying to focus on getting back to my studies and hoped the bizarre encounter was behind me. Fast forward 3 days, and I got an alert from my bank about suspicious activity on my card. I was confused since I had already canceled it the night of the date. The bank representative explained someone had attempted several large purchases before the card was fully deactivated and mentioned my information might have been compromised through a card skimming device. It hit me that Jake must have somehow copied my card details during dinner, possibly when I briefly left the table to use the restroom after paying. I felt so stupid for leaving my card unattended. While dealing with the fraud report, I started getting texts from random numbers that were clearly from Jake. 1 minute apologizing, the next trying to be romantic, and then making weirdly threatening comments. It was making me really anxious to even look at my phone. The next day at work, I was at Mrs. Chen's home, trying to maintain my professional demeanor despite my growing anxiety. While helping her with medication, my phone rang with an unknown number. Thinking it might be the fraud department, I answered. Jake's voice came through immediately, claiming there was a misunderstanding about the credit card situation and that he just needed to talk to me. As his tone shifted from apologetic to menacing when I mentioned the fraud alert, he told me I had no proof and should be careful about making accusations. Mrs. Chen noticed something was wrong and asked me about it in Mandarin. I quickly ended the call and tried to act normal, but she's too perceptive for that. She grasped my hand and said in halting English, "Bad man trouble? My son policeman can help." I almost broke down right there from this unexpected kindness. I briefly explained the situation while continuing my care duties, surprised at how relieved I felt just telling someone. Later that evening, I returned to my apartment building to find Jake waiting in the lobby. Somehow he had discovered where I live. He approached with a friendly demeanor as if nothing had happened, saying he just wanted to clear things up and perhaps start over. He positioned himself between me and the elevator to my apartment. When I firmly refused and reached for my phone to call security, his expression changed completely, and he casually mentioned specific details about my daily routine that he shouldn't have known. Security noticed us and started walking over, which caused Jake to leave quickly, calling back that we'd talk again soon. I installed additional locks on my door that night and finally called Mrs. Chen's son, who took my concerns seriously and helped me file both a fraud report and a harassment complaint. I'll try to respond to comments, but I'm currently studying for my certification exam while also trying to keep all of this hidden from my parents. Am I overreacting about this whole situation? I'm terrified Jake might escalate things, but I also feel stupid for getting myself into this mess in the first place. I've never dealt with anything like this before and just don't know how to handle it. Now for the first update. It's been a week since my dating app disaster post, and honestly, things have gone from bad to worse. Way worse. Thank you all for the support and advice. I've been trying to read every comment even though I'm still dealing with this ongoing nightmare. 3 days after the infamous Jake date, I got an alert from my bank about suspicious activity on my credit card. I was confused because I had already canceled the card the night of the date, as many of you suggested. Smart thinking. When I called the bank, the representative explained someone had attempted several large purchases before the card was fully deactivated and mentioned my information might have been compromised through a card skimming device. That's when it hit me. Jake must have somehow copied my card details during dinner, probably when I left the table to use the restroom after paying. I felt so stupid for leaving my card unattended even for those few minutes, seriously kicking myself for this. The bank rep assured me I wouldn't be liable for the charges, but I still felt violated knowing he had planned this all along. While dealing with the fraud report, I started getting texts from random numbers that were clearly from Jake. One minute he'd be apologizing, the next trying to be romantic, and then making weirdly threatening comments. It was giving me serious anxiety just to look at my phone. I kept blocking each new number, but he'd just message from another one. This guy apparently has unlimited burner phones or something. The next day at work, I was at Mrs. Chen's home trying to maintain my professional demeanor, despite being a nervous wreck inside. For those asking about my patience in the comments, Mrs. Chen is my favorite. She's been in my care for about 8 months, and we've developed a special bond despite the language barrier. While I was helping her with her medication, my phone rang with an unknown number. Thinking it might be the fraud department calling me back, I answered. Big mistake. Jake's voice came through immediately, and my stomach dropped. He claimed there was a misunderstanding about the credit card situation and that he just needed to talk to me. I stayed silent as he talked, but when I finally mentioned the fraud alert, his tone shifted from apologetic to menacing. He told me I had no proof and should be careful about making accusations. My hands were literally shaking as I held the phone. Not exaggerating, I almost dropped my phone twice during this call. Mrs. Chen noticed something was wrong and asked me about it in Mandarin. I quickly ended the call and tried to act normal, but she wasn't buying it. She grasped my hand and said in halting English, "Bad man trouble? My son policeman can help." I almost broke down right there from this unexpected kindness. I briefly explained the situation while continuing my care duties, surprised at how relieved I felt just telling someone. She listened without judgment. Later that evening, I returned to my apartment building and got the shock of my life. Jake was waiting in the lobby. Somehow he had discovered where I live. I'm still not sure how, as I never told him my address, which is freaking me out even more. He approached with a friendly demeanor, as if nothing had happened, saying he just wanted to clear things up and perhaps start over. He positioned himself between me and the elevator to my apartment. When I firmly refused to talk to him and reached for my phone to call security, his expression changed completely. The fake friendliness disappeared, and he casually mentioned specific details about my daily routine that he shouldn't have known, like what time I usually leave for work and where I stop for coffee. I'm getting chills just typing this. He clearly had been watching me, possibly for days. Thankfully, the security guard noticed us and started walking over, which caused Jake to leave quickly. But as he was walking out, he called back that we'd talk again soon. The casual way he said it made it sound more like a threat than a goodbye. I was so shaken that the security guard asked if I was okay and walked me to my apartment. I'm not usually someone who cries easily, but I completely broke down once I got inside. I've never felt so unsafe in my own home before. I installed additional locks on my door that night, thanks to those of you who suggested security measures in the comments. I went with the suggestions from you/Safety Expert 101 and got both a door jammer and a secondary deadbolt. I also finally called Mrs. Chen's son. Officer Chen took my concerns seriously. He helped me file both a fraud report and a harassment complaint. He didn't make me feel stupid for getting into this situation, which I really appreciated because I've been beating myself up enough about it. He asked a lot of detailed questions about Jake, and his expression got more serious when I described the credit card fraud and the stalking behavior. Apparently, there have been similar reports from other women in the area, which is both validating and terrifying. He thinks Jake might be running some kind of organized scam targeting women from dating apps. Officer Chen gave me his direct number and some practical safety advice, varying my routine, being aware of my surroundings, documenting any further contact from Jake, and letting my workplace know not to give out any information about me. He also suggested I stay with a friend for a few days, but with my study schedule for the nursing exam, that's not really practical. Plus, I don't want to explain this humiliating situation to more people than necessary. It's been 2 days since I filed the reports, and I haven't heard from Jake again. Fingers crossed it stays that way. I'm jumping at every notification on my phone and looking over my shoulder constantly, which is making it really hard to focus on studying for my certification exam that's coming up in 2 weeks. I cannot fail this exam after all the work I've put in. I'm still keeping all of this from my parents. If they found out, they'd immediately demand I move back home to the Philippines, where it's safe, and where nice girls don't need to use dating apps to meet suitable men. I can hear my mom's lecture already. They sacrificed so much to send me to nursing school in America, and I can't let them down by giving up now. I've been reading through all your comments on my original post. Seriously, hundreds of them. I'm overwhelmed by the support and implementing as many of your safety suggestions as possible. Thank you to everyone who shared similar experiences. It helps to know I'm not alone in this, even though I wouldn't wish this situation on anyone. I'll update again if anything changes or if the police make any progress with the case. In the meantime, I'm trying to focus on my studies and stay safe. If anyone has additional advice on dealing with stalking situations or protecting yourself after identity theft, I'd really appreciate it. Edit to address some common questions. 1. Yes, I've frozen my credit with all 3 bureaus as suggested. 2. No, I haven't told any of my other patients about this. 3. I'm documenting everything with timestamps as several of you recommended. 4. I'm looking into affordable security cameras for my apartment. Now for the second update. Update 2. Well, it's been 2 weeks since my original dating app disaster post, and I'm sitting here still trying to process everything that's happened. First off, thank you to everyone who sent supportive messages and safety tips. They've been absolute lifelines during what's basically become the biggest nightmare of my life. The week after filing reports with Officer Chen was suspiciously quiet. No weird texts, no Jake sightings, nothing. I was starting to think maybe the police reports had actually scared him off. I managed to get back into my study routine for my nursing certification exam, which is now just over a week away. My mom called from the Philippines for our weekly video chat, and of course, she immediately sensed something was wrong. I kept things vague about just being stressed about the exam, because if she knew what was actually happening, she'd be on the next flight to drag me back home. Just when I thought things were calming down, I got a call from Mrs. Chen's daughter-in-law asking why I'd been requesting additional payments via email. I hadn't sent any emails about payments. Someone, obviously Jake, was impersonating me and asking my elderly patient's family for money. The email claimed I needed gift cards because my mother needed emergency surgery in the Philippines. I immediately called Officer Chen and arranged to meet him and his wife at their home to clear up the situation and show them the fake emails. Officer Chen's wife noticed someone watching us from across the street through their front window. When I peeked out, I realized that the woman matched the description of Jake's girlfriend, the one who had confronted us at Wendy's during that disastrous date. Officer Chen offered to approach her, but honestly, I was tired of living in fear and having my reputation damaged with my patients. I decided to confront the situation directly. I walked across the street with Officer Chen watching from a distance. The woman initially tried to run away when she saw me approaching, but stopped when I called out, "I know Jake sent you." That's when everything took an unexpected turn. Instead of the angry confrontation I was bracing for, this woman, Mia, completely broke down crying right there on the sidewalk. She revealed she was also one of Jake's victims, not his actual girlfriend at all. The entire scene at Wendy's had been staged under his direction to test if I could be manipulated through jealousy. Mia explained that Jake runs elaborate scams targeting women from dating apps. He steals their personal information, creates false identities using their details, and manipulates them emotionally to either get money directly or use them in his schemes. She showed me texts on her phone where he'd threatened to send compromising photos to her deeply religious family if she didn't help him with certain tasks. I recognized the same cultural pressure points he was exploiting in both of us. Mia's family situation was similar to mine. Immigrant parents with traditional values who would be horrified by certain aspects of American dating culture. Jake specifically targets women with these backgrounds because we're less likely to report him out of shame or fear of family reaction. While Mia and I were talking, my phone rang. It was my younger sister calling. Someone claiming to be my fiancé had shown up at her university dorm room, asking for money for our engagement party. My sister is the reason our parents sent me to America in the first place, to establish myself and then help her get her education under my protection. The idea that Jake had now involved her made me sick. Officer Chen had approached during our conversation and immediately called campus police when he heard about my sister. Mia agreed on the spot to provide a formal statement about Jake's operations, seeming almost relieved to finally have a way out of his control. At the police station, Mia revealed details that made everything even more disturbing. Jake has apparently targeted at least 7 other women in similar schemes, focusing specifically on immigrants or first-generation Americans with traditional families. He creates elaborate profiles of his victims, studying their cultural backgrounds to better manipulate their specific fears and values. After giving my own statement, I returned home, physically exhausted, but mentally relieved to have more police support. That relief lasted about 10 minutes, until I opened my laptop and discovered my email had been compromised. Jake had sent messages to my nursing school instructors and other patients' families requesting money under various pretexts. Some appeared to have been sent days ago, which explains the strange looks I'd been getting from a couple of my other patients. I spent the entire night changing passwords, setting up 2-factor authentication on everything, and drafting apologetic emails to everyone who received the fake messages. The most humiliating part was having to explain to my nursing program director that no, I wasn't actually soliciting donations for a family emergency. Officer Chen called in the morning to let me know they're building a case against Jake for multiple fraud charges, but they haven't been able to locate him since the incident with my sister. They've stationed an officer near her dorm as a precaution, but I still can't focus on studying knowing Jake is out there, angry and potentially planning something else. I've started therapy through a victim services program Officer Chen recommended. My first session was yesterday, and just having someone professional to talk to has helped immensely. Edit. To clarify, Mia was not Jake's actual girlfriend. She was another victim he was blackmailing into helping with his scams. The confrontation at Wendy's was entirely staged by Jake to see how I would react to drama. Thank you all for your continued support through this ongoing nightmare. I'm trying to focus on my upcoming exam while dealing with all this, but every notification on my phone still makes me anxious. We'll update when I know more about the police investigation or if anything else happens. Now for the final update. Final update on that dating app scammer situation. Huge thanks to everyone who's been following along and offering support. Your advice saved me in ways I never expected. It's been about 3 weeks since my last update, and everything finally came to a head. With my nursing certification exam just 3 days away, I was barely functioning between the stress of studying and constantly looking over my shoulder. Officer Chen had stationed an officer near my sister's dorm, but we still couldn't locate Jake. After talking with Officer Chen about the email impersonation situation, I made the decision to have my sister temporarily move in with me. I couldn't focus knowing she might be in danger because of my situation. This forced me to finally tell our parents. I crafted this carefully edited version of events where I met a friend of a coworker who turned out to be a scammer, leaving out the whole dating app thing because my traditional Filipino parents would have been on the next flight to drag us both home. Mom cried during our video call, and Dad went silent in that way parents do when they're processing something. They wanted us to come home immediately, but I convinced them we were safe with police support and that my exam was too important to abandon. My sister was actually amazing through all this. She helped quiz me on medications and procedures while we stress-baked about 17 batches of ube pandesal. We were sitting at the kitchen table when she showed me her phone with a look of horror on her face. Someone had created a fake Instagram profile using my name and photos. These weren't just my regular photos, they were edited versions that made them look suggestive. My stomach dropped when I realized the account was already following my workplace, classmates, and several family members. Within minutes, I got a text from an unknown number with screenshots showing messages being drafted to my nursing school director and family. The text simply said I needed to meet Jake to work things out, or everyone would see these images and messages that would destroy my reputation and career. I immediately called Officer Chen, who suggested setting up a sting operation. We arranged a meeting with Jake at a coffee shop near the police station for the next day. Officer Chen explained I'd wear a wire while plainclothes officers stationed nearby would monitor everything. I barely slept that night. My sister stayed up with me watching reality TV shows until 3 a.m., both of us trying to pretend this was just a normal sisterly bonding moment. I arrived at the coffee shop an hour early, partly for the setup, partly because anxiety had me running on adrenaline and zero sleep. I positioned myself at a table with my nursing textbook open, trying to study while waiting, but my hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the pages. Officer Chen had coached me on getting Jake to specifically discuss his previous activities without directly accusing him of anything. When Jake walked in, he looked well-dressed, hair perfectly styled, looking like the successful consultant he'd originally claimed to be. He spotted me immediately and smiled like we were old friends meeting for a catch-up. "You look stressed," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Nursing exams soon, right? I've been keeping track." I managed to maintain a calm facade while asking questions about everything that had happened. Jake initially tried playing innocent about the credit card fraud, but gradually became more comfortable, even leaning in to explain how he'd skimmed my information while I was in the bathroom during our date. "The emails were actually pretty impressive," he said. "Most people can't tell the difference between a real domain and my spoofed ones. Your patient's family wouldn't have known if you hadn't warned them." As he talked, he mentioned other victims by name, at least 6 women he'd scammed using similar tactics. He detailed their finances, family situations, and vulnerabilities with confidence that made me nauseous. Then came the moment that still gives me chills. Jake reached across the table for my hand and said, "We could actually make a lot of money together. Your access to elderly patients' finances combined with my systems, we'd be unstoppable." He smiled as if he was offering me a legitimate business opportunity. "I specifically look for women with traditional family values," he continued, his voice dropping. "Your Filipino background made you an ideal target. Your sense of family duty, your concern about appearances, women like you rarely report guys like me." That's when Officer Chen and 3 other officers approached our table. Jake didn't even notice at first, still smiling at me while explaining his business model. When Officer Chen identified himself, Jake's face changed. First confusion, then his smile, and finally rage when the handcuffs came out. "You set me up," he said as they read him his rights. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. I have people who work for me who will finish what I started." The officers led him away while he continued making threats, but seeing him handcuffed and powerless was a significant moment of this ordeal. I sat there until Officer Chen came back to check on me. At the police station, I learned Jake had outstanding warrants in 3 states for similar scams. He was facing multiple federal fraud charges, identity theft, and cybercrimes. They found evidence on his phone connecting him to at least 12 other victims with nearly identical schemes. That evening, Officer Chen's family insisted my sister and I join them for dinner. His mother patted my hand and said something in Mandarin that her son translated, "Family takes care of family, even new family." I cried into my dumplings. I took my nursing certification exam yesterday and passed. The fake Instagram profile has been removed, and the police have been helping all of Jake's victims navigate the process of clearing their names and recovering from his schemes. My sister is moving back to her dorm next week with a new security system courtesy of Officer Chen. Edit. Forgot to mention that Mia has become an unexpected friend through all this. We meet weekly for coffee and support each other through the aftermath. She's even helping me create a support group for other victims of dating app scams with cultural or immigrant backgrounds, since we face unique challenges when reporting these things. Looking back at my first reluctant post about a terrible date with a guy who forgot his wallet, I barely recognized the person who wrote it. I've learned that my traditional upbringing gave me strengths I never appreciated: resilience, community building, and the ability to find family wherever I go.